Scream 2022, or Scream 5 to be precise, was directed by Matt Bertinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett, and stars Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, and a slew of newcomers. A new Ghostface emerges to antagonize a new group of kids, and of course, Sidney Prescott must do what she does best and return to Woodsboro to help them figure out who it is before it's too late. What is up, guys? So we now have on our hands our fifth Scream movie, and whether you want to call it a reboot, a remake, a requel, as somebody calls it in this movie, which is ridiculous in my opinion. It's a new one added to the franchise, created by Kevin Williamson and of course the late great Wes Craven. And for those who somehow do not know, the Scream movie back in, I think it was 96, kind of reinvented and reinvigorated the slasher genre for a modern audience. It took this film and before there was a cabin in the woods, before anybody had done anything like that, this movie, it took a look at a horror movie within a horror movie, so to speak. So we had people who were horror fans and they knew of all the rules and they've seen all the movies that we've seen, but their life is also a horror movie, you know. So it was something we hadn't really seen done before, not counting Wes Craven's New Nightmare itself, you know, which took on that whole meta angle as well. But, you know, that was more about why horror movies needed to exist, you know. So it was a phenomenon and it breeded all these sequels. And to be fair, when I look at it, I actually rewatched all the sequels recently because I had to do a ranking over at redmangoreviews.com. So I will put a link to that if you want to check it out. Yeah, I had to rewatch these and see where I stood with all the films in general. And I must say what you will about the quality of the sequels. As a whole, as a horror franchise, this is possibly the one franchise that has had the best sequels in all of the horror franchises. When you look at it, what I mean by that, and I'm talking slashers here, so I'm not counting the Conjuring franchise or anything like that. I'm counting slashers. When you put Scream up against Friday the 13th, which is I'm a huge Friday the 13th fan, you know, and I will always, you know, I love those films as flawed as they are. I love those movies. If you put it up against A Nightmare on Elm Street, where the quality of the sequels definitely fell and it got ridiculous, and then they keep trying to breathe new life into it. The Scream franchise, the films, say what you will, the films never really dip below a certain level of quality, and for a horror franchise that's very rare. So here we are with the latest, and everybody wants to know, is it as good as the first? Of course, that's the one it's always going to be compared against. Is it as good as the first? And while I don't think it's as good as the first film, I think it comes in second, a strong second. So let's get into it. And I'll start by breaking down the things that I liked most about this film. And that, first of all, is going to be on the visual side. I think the directors here did a wonderful job. Is it Bertinelli-Olpin and Gillette, if I have those names correctly? I think they did a great job of capturing the essence of a Wes Craven slasher. You know, you can see the love for it. There's definitely in those scenes where we have those cat and mouse chases, which of course is what Ghostface is most famous for, besides the meta stuff. It looks really good. There's this sense that you feel almost like Wes Craven had a hand in this, you know. For me, it was the hospital scene and the final act. There's a scene early on with one of the characters named Wes is having a shower, and his mom is, you know, supposed to go and pick up some takeout and stuff like that. And there's a whole sequence that takes place there as well. And it was the one sequence where the audience I saw this with, it really caught them off guard. You know, I kind of saw it coming. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I saw where that was going, but ultimately I could appreciate the aesthetics of it all. I thought the film looked really good, and I thought that those things were paced really well. You know, I did like a lot of it. On top of that, this being a horror movie, we have to talk about the actual kills. And this Scream movie, I must say, I don't think it's since maybe the second and the ending act of the fourth that I've seen one this gruesome. They really go for it in this one. There's some the kills do tend to be impactful, especially when certain people are involved. I'll leave it at that. And I thought that for the most part it looked really good. Even the CG stuff, I'm not a fan of, as you guys know, I'm not a fan of special effects when it comes to horror. I wish everything could be practical. I know cost wise it's not the smartest thing, or maybe it's not something everybody can do, but you'll never be practical effects in a horror movie. But for the most part here, they do a good job of putting the two together in a way that's quite effective. And of course, we have the return of Ghostface, looking like Ghostface, and that iconic, iconic, non-iconic mask. And by that I mean, it's so funny to me that this is something just like the hockey mask, you could say in Jason. That the Freddy glove is pretty, like, from the get-go. That's iconic. But you take something as simple as a hockey mask, or in this case, you take a Halloween mask that they say was, just sold in a Halloween store. Anybody could get a hold of it, although I know none of us had seen anything like that before. It's pretty effective. Ghostface as a killer is pretty effective. And here, I'm not sure who does the stunt work, who's behind the mask, but person is tall and they're imposing, and you really do get a sense of size here, and it does feel a bit more intense here, for want of a better word, because I remember watching the first Scream movie. You look at it, you look at the movement of the character, and I love it actually. I do love that, because this is not a supernatural entity. Ghostface definitely is a character that, you throw something at him, he's gonna fall over, he's gonna flinch. And I actually used to like that. I dig that, he's still relentless, but I like that they never treated him like a supernatural entity. And here, they're not doing that, but you definitely get a sense of physicality in the way he's portrayed here. So I really dig that as well. Now, when it comes to the acting, I think the lead is strong. I think her name, I'm sorry if I don't remember her first name, Barrera. She plays Sam Carpenter. Of course, a nod to John Carpenter there. And she's our new Sidney Prescott, so to speak. She's the character that's standing there. Now, we have all these new characters, all these new kids, and what they did to link everything together is everybody here has a connection to everybody in the past films, so you have, like, there are some twins here that are related to Randy. You have Sam having her own story there. I'm not going to get into that. And they link it back by doing it that way. And I mean, that's something I've seen before. You've seen movies where people are saying, well, this person is the daughter of, or the son of, or the niece of, or whatever, and it links back to the killer. It doesn't feel forced here, so it's not exactly the most subtlest way to do it, but it works. Overall, it works. So all that stuff works, and of course we have the originals returning here. We have Neve Campbell back at it again as Sidney Prescott. We have Courtney Cox back as Gail Weathers, and we have Dewey back again here, David Arquette. It was great seeing them all, especially, I think, like, these are characters that you've actually grown to care about, through all of this. Dewey is a character that started off as such, and to think he was never meant to survive this entire thing. David Arquette's portrayal of this character, I think it has grown in such a natural way, and he feels like somebody who's really been through it. And of the three, funny enough, he's the one that I felt like I connected with most here, even though Sidney is back in some form. But it was great to see all of them back at it again, in franchise that, kind of made, especially for Neve Campbell, it made them household names, so to speak, And they do what they have to do well. The movie itself is, of course, it wants to focus on this new cast. And that takes me into where I'm going to get into some of the negatives here. This this cast, they no. First of all, I'm not gonna blame the actors here, guys, because when I look at it, really, I don't think the kids are to blame for my issues, but this cast for me was not as charismatic or memorable as the cast that came before. By now, I think for most people, if you're a fan of Scream, you're a fan of these characters. You know the names. You know Stu. You know Randy. You know Billy. You know all these characters. Tatum. You know all of them kind of off the cuff, which is kind of amazing considering it's a slasher. I don't know any other slasher movie where I know the characters' names by heart. I don't remember the most of the characters from Halloween and stuff. I maybe a couple names, but that's about it. Same goes for Friday the 13th. So that just goes to tell you how well those characters were written and how well they were crafted and how well they were directed. And I can't help but feel if maybe Wes Craven was still around, and just there to really get that out of these kids. Again, I'm not knocking these directors. I definitely see the love, the passion for both Scream and for what Wes Craven has done. But the writing here for these kids are not the greatest. It's one of the weak points to me in this movie. It does feel a bit hollow. Like, we get that there's stand-ins, but you don't just need stand-ins. If you want to recreate or reimagine what was done in the first Scream movie, I feel like you need to give us characters that we want to root for. We want to see them survive, because that's how I felt about the first group of characters, honestly. And I still kind of do, even when up to now, rewatching the first Scream and seeing Rose McGowan's character, I think Tatum, die. It's like, for me, it's the most horrific death in the entire movie. And I feel it every time. I don't know why. I know, I was like, oh, why can't she escape, There's not that here. I'm not connecting with these characters on this level at all. And sad to say, that goes for the main character of Sam as well. Where Sydney, there was something about the way Neve Campbell portrayed Sydney. She was sweet, she was a bit naive, but she was strong. Sam is very capable, and the character is likable. There's just something there I'm not connecting with. And the same goes for the other characters here. These characters are the same typical slasher characters that if they die, I don't feel it. And I honestly couldn't care less who survived to the end in this. And that brings me to our killers, or killer, or I think, look, you know what? By now, it's two. So I don't think I'm giving away anything here. But I think that was a problem. We know by now that Ghostface is usually two people, right? As weird as that might sound, Ghostface is two people. And I was kind of hoping they would subvert that a bit here, because we're all looking for two suspects. And guys, I'm sorry, I figured it out by the first half. I think maybe first 20 minutes of the film had passed, and I was like, I know who these killers are, and I got it right. And it's because one of them is deliberately telegraphed. The other is maybe trying to be subtle, but it honestly is not subtle at all. And I was a little bit disappointed by that, because the first Scream movie, and I'm gonna give myself a little pat on the back for that one. I did figure out that Billy Loomis was one of the killers, but like most people, I wasn't expecting two people. And I was there watching this with my sister. I totally remember this. And we were arguing. We kind of whisper arguing, of course, we're not being asses, about who we think the killer is. And I'm like, it's Billy. And she's like, it's Stu. And so, we got it right. We got it right. But nobody expected it. It was a big surprise. It was very impactful. Here, because we know it's Stu, I pretty much nailed the two people that to me were the most obvious choices. And those obvious choices were obviously correct. Sorry if you're hearing that. My neighbor's kids are going a little wild in the yard next door. Yeah, so overall, guys, that for me let this film down a bit. What saves it? The final act is pretty strong. It is a recreation of Scream 1, but it still works, you know. And I think it's very energetic, and the pacing is perfect. And as a whole, that final act works really well. The what didn't work well for me was the reveal, because I honestly was like, oh, I'm the killer, and I'm like, yeah, I know that. Okay, right, let's move forward. So I don't know how many other people figured it out. If you did, let me know. But that kind of took away a lot of the impact for me. And I just wish that they maybe had gone a different route with the Ghostface reveal. Because by now, everybody's looking out for two killers. You know, so it just makes it a little easier to pick apart certain things that come before and kind of nail that. And you want your whodunit to be strong in a slasher. It's the funnest part, you know. Yeah, 80s slashers, you go back now and you're like, oh my god, it was so obvious, you know. But you need to step it up just a little bit more, because this is Scream we're talking about. And every time somebody goes into a Scream movie, they're expecting something kind of special. They're expecting Scream to dissect some aspect of horror that we've all gotten used to. And sad to say, it's kind of like an Ouroboros now, where Scream is now eating its own tail, because if they stick to this particular plot device, it's gonna wear thin, you know. All that said, guys, wow, I had a lot to say about Scream. All that said, though, I really enjoyed this movie, and if I'm ranking them, it's my number 2. I think this is a solid, surprisingly solid sequel, or whatever they want to call it. It's up there. It's well paced. It's well directed. The atmosphere is great. The sound design, a lot of it works. And at no point was this movie boring to me. You know, I did enjoy it from beginning to end, even though I was sitting there and I'm like, I pretty much think I have it nailed down who's done what. I was hoping I was wrong. But yeah, red herrings, all of it together. This is definitely a passion project that works. It's like the first Halloween one that we got before Halloween. I'm sorry, Halloween Kills. I wasn't impressed by that. But you guys know what I'm saying. I think it was 2018 Halloween. That was really, really, really good. This is like that for me. And if they keep doing it like this, I think this Scream franchise can go on for a very, very long time, you know. And I'm going to give it a strong 6.5 out of 10. I quite enjoyed this movie. I quite like this movie. I would even say 7 out of 10 now that I'm thinking about it, because my initial is 6.5 out of 10. I'll even go as high as 7. I quite enjoyed this. As Scream movies go, it's a solid one. And as a whole, this entire horror franchise, it really is one of the better ones out there. So that's going to be it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please feel free to hit that thumbs up. It's always appreciated. If you're new and you would like to subscribe to my channel, feel free to click on my face when it pops up right about this spot. And you can check out past reviews right along this way. So until the next one, guys. Bye-bye.